All right, guys, we're back in Toronto. Been a couple weeks since I came back from Vegas. I'm actually in my pool area now, just walking around. I'll show you guys the pool area in a bit, but I want to talk about my overall experience in Las Vegas, how I feel about live MTTs in general, about the climate of the games, which games I think are good, which games I think are bad, what I think about it just overall. I want to tell you guys about everything in this video, okay? So it's going to be a recap of my trip, my experience, just everything. This is going to be a recap of all of Las Vegas and live MTTs. That's the building I live in, by the way, guys. That tall guy. We're on floor 73, somewhere up there. And I'll show you guys this pool area here too, before we get into the nitty gritty. Let me show you guys what's going on in this pool here. Not many people here right now today, but it's a really, really nice pool area for just like a residential building. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff. There's like a tree. There's walkways, there's greenery. It's like a whole like 7th floor deck area. So I don't have a lot of experience playing live MTTs, okay? But when I was in Las Vegas, I did notice some things. Now, I was told by a couple of Las Vegas regulars that during the main event, that is the toughest time basically in all Las Vegas MTTs. So I want to tell you my experience maybe a little bit before the main event started, and then while the main event was going on, what was going on. The first tournament I played was the 1600 at the Wynn. When I sat down, I was astounded as to how amazing that table was. I think it might have been unlimited reentries or 2 reentries, something like that. I don't know, there was reentries. I sat down and I was like, I can't wait to spend the next couple weeks in Las Vegas and make a killing here. And the table was all fish, okay? And I busted quite quickly in that tournament, which is fine. I went to the re-entry booth. I re-entered. The second table I was on was pretty damn good too. I was like, okay, this is a good tournament. The 1600 at the Wynn, this is a good tournament. This is an amazing atmosphere. The food there is amazing. Everything was great, right? And then I didn't run deep or anything, but what I noticed was about midway into the tournament, the field started to look really tough. And it got me thinking, right? These tournaments and a lot of the experience that I had playing live tournaments, anything like above like a 1K, was that usually the tournament looked really, really good right from the beginning, from hand one. And then once you got to about midway point of like day one, I would look around and be like, all the fish are gone, right? All the fish are gone, and a lot of the regs have stacks, which makes sense, okay, right? But here's the thing. If you're playing live tournaments for a living, guys, you absolutely must be there from hand number 1, okay? You have to. You absolutely have to. And anything beyond hand 1 is just a mistake. You know, if you're having the discipline and you're taking this seriously, this is your profession, you have to be there from hand 1, guys, because that's where all the value is. There's more fish, and the fish are going to dump their money within the next within the first few hours usually, and then they're going to go hang out by the pool or have a drink or something or whatever, right? So that's the first rule to remember in this video. If you play live MTTs, or if you're planning on playing live MTT trip or whatever, make sure you're there from hand 1. If you're not there from hand 1, then be there for hand 2, right? So just as early as possible, because in the re-entry tournaments, once, you know, poker or MTTs, I should say, started doing like re-entries for everything, that's when I think everything kind of got messed up, because all the best regs are going to re-enter the tournaments, right? And all the worst fish probably are not. So if you get some of the best regs re-entering tournaments like 4, 5, 6 times, making sure that they're there on day 2, what do you think day 2 is going to look like, guys? It's going to be very tough. And day 2 and day 3 and later in the tournaments, that's where all the money is. So if you're playing all regs in that situation, you need to at the very least make sure that you get there with a large stack. And the way you build that large stack is from the fish in the early goings of the tournament. So another thing I want to talk about is that I really dislike the tournaments that have like flight 1A, 1B, 1C, besides the main event. The main event is a massive exception because it's a freeze out, okay? That's very different. When it's a freeze out, everything changes. But the main event is the best tournament ever. You know, I will never say anything bad about the main event. That's a fantastic tournament. We're talking about other tournaments that have either one re-entry per flight or unlimited re-entries in all flights or whatever. These tournaments are so bad in my opinion because what happens is every single good reg is gonna fire probably maximum into the tournament, which let's say there's 3 flights. Let's just say there's 3 flights. Flight 1A, flight 1B, flight 1C, okay? And there's re-entries, which is like a lot of tournaments like that in Vegas. Well, like main event kind of tournaments and like the MGM, there was an MGM 1700, there was a, you know, Venetian Deep Stat, whatever. They have like a lot of main event kind of series where they have flight 1A, 1B, 1C. Now, let's say there's unlimited, let's say there's only 1 re-entry per flight. Best case scenario, because usually they're probably going to be unlimited or 2 entries per flight or whatever. Let's say there's 1 re-entry per flight, which is like the best you can see possibly. A reg is going to go in, he's going to fire 2 bullets on the first day at least. If he doesn't make it to day 2, he's going to go in for 1B and he's going to fire another 2 bullets. If he doesn't make it for that, he's going to go in for 1C and he's going to fire another 2 bullets, okay? So a really good player has 6 tries in a tournament like that, at least, because if it's an unlimited re-entry, he would have more. At least 6 tries, and even up to like 10 or 12 or something in unlimited re-entry situations where they're just gonna make day 2, okay? So these tournaments get really, 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 really tough in the deeper stages. And again, like we talk about in MTTs, top 3 is where all the money is. So you don't want it to be super tough in the late stages. That's why I really dislike those kind of tournaments. I don't think there's that much value in them. It just draws a lot of regs and it draws a lot of rebuying regs. I just don't see the value in those tournaments. Let's talk about what I do see the value in. What I saw really good value in Las Vegas. Some people are gonna think this is weird, of course, but satellites. Now, satellites were extremely valuable. I mean, there were so many fish playing satellites. It was like remarkable to see, but the structures weren't good. Okay, so there's some give and take there. The structures just weren't good, guys. So I was playing satellites and the structure was 20-minute levels up until like level 7, and then it was switched to 30-minute levels. 30-minute levels is not good. It's kind of like a turbo structure. So just be careful on the buy-ins you play on satellites. You know, I was playing some big buy-in satellites, but if you play some smaller buy-in satellites or medium buy-in satellites, like anything like 1K and less, the value is there, guys. It's just like filled with whales. It's unbelievable. And in any tournament in World Series of Poker that's like a 1K or less, just seems like it just draws such a high amount of fish. Like, it's quite unbelievable to see. Like any tournament, wow, 1K or less, like it just seems like at least 50% fish there. It's just like they love it. They're trying to get that glory. This is how they can say they played a World Series of Poker event. But and then I looked at tournaments like anything like 3K or higher. There was so many regs, guys. There was so many regs. And I was doing the math in my head. I was like calculating the rake and how much dead money needs to be in this pool to make this tournament profitable, period. And I was having a hard time wrapping my head around it. I just don't think those tournaments are profitable for a lot of regs, to be honest. I think they might only be profitable for like the top 1 to 5% of regs. And then all the other regs are basically just like slowly bleeding in these tournaments because there's a lack of fish in some of these higher buy-ins. And when you factor in the rake, there has to be so much dead money in the pool just for you to even break even in a tournament. And you're playing a higher buy-in, so there's more variance. Doesn't make sense to me, guys. It really doesn't. The math doesn't check out. And then I do want to tell you guys about one tournament that I found quite terrible as well. But this, again, was during the main event time, where it does make sense that all tournaments other than the main event are very reggy during the time around where the main event happens, because there's so many regs that fly to Vegas to play the main event, right? So when they bust the main event, they're looking for other tournaments to play. So around that time, the main event, I played at 1100 at the Wynn, and I sat down and I was like, okay, my table looks reggy. Maybe there's like 1 or 2 reg fish in here, but mostly it's just super reggy, right? A couple people busted, yada, yada, yada. And then I saw some hands. I'm like, wow, that was really good. Ooh, that was really good. Wow, that was really good, right? It was surprising to me how reggy it was. It was actually shocking. It was a random 1100 at the Wynn. It was a unlimited re-entry, I believe. And it ended up getting about 379 runners, I think it was exactly, actually. And I remember like a few hours into the day, I looked at my table. It was all regs, 100% regs. There was 9 regs at my table, including myself, right? And then I looked at a couple other people's tables. I was like looking at the tables around me, and I was like, holy shit, it's all regs, like 100% regs, backpacks and headphones. It's so obvious when you see a reg, guys. In Vegas, it's like backpack, headphones. They're comfortable at the table. They're ordering food. They're putting their feet, you know what I mean? Like, they've been there before, right? And I did the math in my head. I calculated the rake. The rake in that tournament, it was at 1,100. The rake was 120 bucks. So I did 120 bucks times 379 or 380, whatever you want to say. That's the amount of players that were in there. And I calculated from that number that we needed about, that tournament needed about 40 people in the tournament that were absolutely dead money. When I say dead money, I mean they have 0% of even cashing. They have to be dead, completely dead. And we know, like, in poker, it's hard for people to be absolutely dead money. So if there's 40 fish in a tournament, they're dead money. That's you know, fish could even win tournaments, right? So really, you need to be looking at probably like 70 or 80 fish to say that they're like 40 of them are like absolutely dead. Maybe, right? So that tournament probably needs like something like 70 or 80 fish to be good. Now, there was 380 people in the tournament. I will guarantee you this, there was not 80 fish in that tournament or even close to it. Probably not even 60, maybe not even 40, okay? So that tournament, after you calculate rake, it was just not good. It was not good. There was nothing good about it. All the tables were regs, basically. And it was terrible. I would go as far as saying it was terrible. When you factor all those things in, now I know this was the main event time, so it's gotta be tougher than the rest of the year, as I've heard. So I can't comment on, you know, how tournaments look in Las Vegas or anywhere else on, like, you know, in a random September or November or whatever, you know, because I don't have that much experience in them. I will say this, when you're playing live MTTs, be very choosy about which games you play. Understand your edge. You have to look around the field. You have to look around the field. Take a really good look around the field. You have to see a lot of dead money, a lot of dead money for the tournament to be good. So what I concluded in Las Vegas during WSOP, from what I saw, anything 1K or under, like I was saying before, WSOP is a fantastic tournament. Any satellite is fantastic. Probably any tournaments earlier in WSOP that's like 2K or under is probably good. I'm guesstimating that. Around the main events, be careful. Play the main event, obviously, because that's the best tournament on earth. Okay, all the satellite winners are in there. That's the best tournament. It's a freeze out. Any freeze out is amazing. All freeze outs are amazing. All freeze outs are amazing. All tournaments 1K or under are amazing. Satellites are amazing. So those are the tournaments I plan to play next time I'm in Vegas. Just be careful. Don't play like just a random like 2K with like unlimited re-entries and 4 flights. It's just stupid. It really is. It's really a dick swinging contest. I would imagine if the math came out on those tournaments, they would see that like just the average reg is it's just probably just slowly bleeding to death in those kind of tournaments, because like I said, they're so tough when they get deeper, right? So let's do a little recap. I also do want to talk about, actually, before I do a recap, there was a tournament series in Toronto. There was a tournament series in Montreal. The tournament series in Toronto was amazing, guys. It was like so many fish, and it was amazing. So some live stops are probably fantastic. I can't comment on all the live stops. I'm talking specifically about Vegas around the World Series of Poker is what I'm talking about in this video. But the Toronto live stop was amazing. And I think a lot of live stops around the world could be really good. You just have to pick and choose which ones you think are going to be good. You got to experience them, maybe. I don't know. You got to take a good look. But the Toronto one was amazing. But then I went to Montreal, and I thought it was whatever. You know, the live stop in Montreal, WPT, did some tournament series there. I thought it was whatever. It was just like maybe like 7 regs at a table and like 2 fish, which it's not great. You know, it's not great. Like, but it's not like terrible either. I was like, whatever. It just wasn't worth. It wasn't worth going there for. It wasn't worth, like, because you got to also realize these live stops, you got to pay for flights, you got to pay for hotels, you know, unless you live in the place, right? You got to pay all these expenses, and like, which means your ROI has to be even higher to even break even. Traveling for MTTs, I would say it's you know, it's not really for me. And I tend to just get sick at these things every single time, guys. I don't know what's wrong with me, but every single time I go to a live MTT, I just end up with some kind of flu or COVID-19 or whatever. I don't know. I can't handle it, maybe. Poker chips, so many people in one room, like yada, yada, yada. It was tough for me, for sure. No question about it. And it's emotionally draining for me personally. Again, you might have a different experience. But for me, when I'm playing live MTTs, I am drained. My Aura ring that I wear every single day tells me that my body, my mind is just struggling. Like I'm stressed out. I don't know what it is about live tournaments. It just stresses me out. Just in general, I'm gonna be very, 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 very choosy on what I play, what I don't play, just from a health perspective and from a EV perspective, okay? You need to be aware of your edge. Look around your table, but not only around your table, look around the whole, like all the tables basically in the tournament. And you wanna really see, like, in my opinion, you really wanna see at least like 30% fish in the field, preferably like 40 to 50% fish would be great, but you wanna see at least 30% fish in the field to really be like, okay, this is a decent tournament. 40, 50% is preferable, higher is better, obviously, you know, and you can find those at those low to mid stakes buy-ins, which I think are the best value in live MTTs anyways, especially with like re-entries and stuff. You're playing like an $800 tournament with re-entries. I mean, you're looking at like a on average, like a 2 to 3K tournament, you know what I mean? So just keep that in mind. And in my opinion, skip for the most part anything that's like above like 1600 or even 1100, honestly. And some 1100s are bad, like I said, like the one at the win was terrible. So we got to see, like sometimes maybe you show up there for hand one and take a look at the field. If the field doesn't look amazing, just don't play, right? Go play something else, you know? Go play cash games or something. If the field doesn't look amazing, right? That's my best advice for live MTTs. Be careful. You know, Scott Seaver was tweeting out about like, if all the results of these live tournaments came out, that they just wouldn't even be profitable anymore. I mean, that they wouldn't even be like, they would probably like shut down live like World Series of Poker, because, you know, everyone hears about the guys that are winning tournaments, the guys that won like $1 million, $2 million, they won a bracelet, whatever. But nobody says anything about the thousands of poker regs that go to Las Vegas every summer and leave down between $20,000 and $100,000, okay? Thousands of poker regs. That would be the story for. I talked to a lot of the regs there. I talked to some guys that have been going there for like 10 years, and they were like, yeah, overall we're down in Vegas, even though we've had some big scores and shit like that. You look at Daniel Negreanu's vlog. Daniel Negreanu won the $50,000 WSOP event for like $1.1 million. He ended up being down in the World Series of Poker, okay? I think he was down like 240K or something like that overall. Being down that much after winning such a big tournament, it's crazy, right? Insane. But that was the case. That was the case, guys, okay? So you gotta be careful on these things. You gotta be careful on these things. Don't look at the smoke and mirrors. Hendon Mob is all smoke and mirrors. They only show winnings. They don't show how many times people have re-entered. They don't show all the bust outs and stuff like that. It's not shark scope, guys. You see somebody up like 10 million bucks, that guy might be a break-even player. He might be losing money. You see somebody up 20, 30 million bucks, you don't know how many 250Ks he's played this year or last year, or 300Ks or 100Ks and re-entered and lost and yada, yada, yada. They only show cashes, right? So there is no such thing that has like a proper win-loss for live MTTs. And in my opinion, I think that's on purpose. I think that's on purpose because it's not very hard, especially for like a World Series of Poker or Triton or whatever. They have all the information needed to do this, to put everyone's profit loss based on how many times they re-entered or whatever, but they don't do it, guys. They don't do it, right? And I think that's very, very much on purpose. That's my opinion. Because a lot of these, like, especially the high stakes tournaments, I think are just like completely, dick swinging contests of just like total regs and maybe like 5 to 10% fish. But that's not enough. That's not enough for those games to be really profitable in the long run, right? Just some people run good in these, and the variance is insane. Not to mention the variance is insane, right? And the other thing I want to mention is you don't have much of an edge on weak regs in these games. right? Usually when you're playing, like, if you're playing like a cash game, like 100 big blind cash game, let's say, or you're playing like heads up, even at like 20 big blinds, 25 big blinds heads up, you have a big edge and heads up because you're playing one-on-one with somebody. In cash games, you have a big edge on the weak regs because you're going post flop all the time. You're seeing, you're playing lots of turns and rivers. And MTTs, a lot of these MTTs end up, you know, with average stacks like 20 to 30 big blinds and sometimes even less. So your edge on a weak reg is just not, it's not there. Or even your edge on like a whatever fish is like, it's not huge, guys, because even those guys know how to rejam like ace jack offsuit and stuff, you know? You're playing a weak reg, you open the button, you're like, okay, here we go, I'm in position, I'm gonna maximize my edge. You open the button and he goes all in on you with queen 10 suited for 20 bigs. You don't have an edge anymore. You know, like when you're at like 20 bigs, it's just hard. You don't really have that edge because people are just rejamming, and like it's all about like it's a lot of it is pre-flop, right? You're not getting into spots where you're, you know, gonna be triple barreling and stuff. That those only happen early in the tournament when you're deeper. That's why it's so important to get there early. So keep that in mind, guys. Get there early, play from hand one. Make sure you're picking the right tournaments to play, the high value tournaments, the ones that at the very least are 30% fish, preferably 40, 50% or higher, which are going to be low to mid stakes buy-ins. Yeah, just be aware of this stuff, guys. Be aware of this stuff. Look around you. Don't be one of those people that are just going to go play tournaments without, like, or overestimating your edge, and going to play a tournament and look around the table and just like seeing a bunch of regs and being like, oh, I'm better than these regs, so who cares, you know? Like, don't do that. Don't be that guy, guys. You have to be able to feel and see your edge. See and feel your edge at the tables. And not only at your table, you got to look around all the other tables and be like, okay, this is a good tournament. That's all I have to say about that, guys. That's my feelings. I won't be in the live tournament scene very much because of all the reasons I mentioned before. But when I do play live tournaments, you can be sure I'm going to be very picky and choosy with them. I'm not a tournament reg. I do make some mistakes in these tournaments, and I check all the hands in GTO Wizard afterwards, and I do see that I have been making some slight mistakes in a lot of different spots. Nothing crazy though, guys. Honestly, nothing crazy, but I'm going to make a lot of slight mistakes. And even if I was a tournament reg, I would still be wanting to play tournaments that are profitable, and not only profitable, that are very profitable. I hope this helps you. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye, guys.